world's first race is completed and the Vault of Glass is live. What's going on, Guardians? My name is the Black Link, and we are a little over a day removed from the release of the Vault of Glass here in the world of Destiny 2. And indeed, I've completed the Vault of Glass and wanted to make a quick guide video explaining how exactly you can complete each of the encounters quickly and easily. The VOG experience is mostly the same as you remember it from back in Destiny 1, but there are key differences and important points. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive on into the guide. Your first job is to build the spire and open the door. This section is almost identical to the way it was in Vault of Glass in D1. You're going to need to break your 6-man fire team up into 3 teams of 2, and each team needs to stand on and guard a Vex sink plate while building a spire. Over the course of this, several waves of Vex are going to spawn and attempt to take over the plate. You simply need to defend it, stand on that plate, and keep those Vex, especially the heavily shielded Minotaurs, from taking it over. The main difference in this section when it comes to comparing D2 and D1 is Vex Cyclops will also spawn periodically. These Cyclops will take priority. When they pop up, they need to be killed ASAP. A couple of shots from a heavy weapon like Anarchy or Xenophage or Deathbringer will do the job. After a few waves worth of Vex, the spire will complete and the door will open. You'll receive your first set of raid rewards and be ready to move on to the Templar's Well. Once you've completed the spire, you can take the normal path to the Templar by just following the path laid out before you. But, of course, there is a secret path that will lead you to an extra raid chest. If you walk over to the cliff you're seeing here, turn around, just back off of it, and when you drop down, you'll see the door on a ledge beneath you. Head this way to grab the extra chest, and it'll also lead you on an alternate path to the Templar's Well. The next encounter is going to be the Conflux defense stage. Once you've gone through the short jumping puzzle and entered the Templar's Well, the Templar himself will spawn in the middle, as well as a couple of Confluxes. These Confluxes will spawn on the left, on the right, and in the front middle of the well themselves. They're pretty much impossible to miss when you first drop down. Here, you'll need to defend these Confluxes from Vex that are going to attempt to sacrifice themselves to it. For D2 players, this is basically a big version of that Vex public event you all play on Nessus. And this section will have 3 phases. In the first phase, you'll only need to defend against Vex on the middle Conflux. Then, in the second phase, the Conflux on both the right and left will spawn. You'll need to guard those. And then for the third phase, you have to guard all 3. So break your fire team up into 3 groups of 2 once again and have them defend each of the sides. This section itself is actually pretty simple. You'll mostly only have to deal with goblins, hobgoblins, and the occasional wyvern or overload minotaur. As long as you focus those enemies down, you shouldn't have too much trouble defending the Conflux. After every round, however, the Templar will summon his minions, a bunch of headless goblins called fanatics that when destroyed will drop a pool beneath them. If you step in this, you're going to get a huge debuff that can only be cleansed by heading into the middle of the Templar's Well, where he happens to be sitting. So when you see those fanatics or destroy a Vex and it drops a big blue pool underneath it, don't step in that. That'll be important during the Oracle phase as well. Anyways, this section's pretty simple. Just defend the Confluxes and you will complete it. Next up is the Oracles, which has seen a pretty big change since D1, and will have important mechanics that you'll need to remember for the rest of the raid. During this phase, missing an Oracle or destroying them in the incorrect order will also mark you for negation, same as stepping into one of the Vex pools. The debuff that these pools give you is called the Mark of Negation, and if you still have that debuff on when the Templar does its occasional Ritual of Negation cast, you will instantly die, and so you have to cleanse it by heading to the bottom of the central area to step into the pool. But as a heads up to fire teams who do happen to get marked, the pool will disappear almost immediately after the first person steps in, so if everybody in your fire team gets marked for negation, which again is going to be important when we get to the Templar fight itself, you need to time your entire fire team jumping into there. Don't just have one person run in and then have everybody else get there. You need to group up, all step in at almost the same time. But alright, now you're on the Oracle phase. During this phase, 7 oracles will periodically light up across the map, and it's your job to destroy them in the specific order that they appear. That's the major change from D1, and it makes this surprisingly hectic. Since at the same time, more Vex will be continually spawning, you'll also be dealing with hobgoblin snipers during this phase, and it just makes things really difficult to deal with. Essentially, you're going to have 3 oracles that can spawn on the right side, 3 oracles that can spawn on the left, and 1 oracle that can spawn in the middle. Before this part of the raid goes live, the oracles will pop up to show you exactly where they can appear. And they're almost impossible to miss. Your team will see them when they initially pop up to show you where they're capable of spawning. So, after you've started this section and the oracles have done their initial startup phase, the Templar will resummon them and the oracles will spawn in a specific order. You need to take note of what order they spawn in. After those oracles have flashed forward twice, they'll spawn in permanently and you'll need to destroy them in the exact order they popped up. This will continue on for about 5 waves. The first wave, only 3 oracles will spawn. The second wave, 4, 5 in the third, 6 in the fourth, and then in the final wave, all 7 oracles will spawn. The easiest way to get this done, I found, was to pick a different oracle for each member of your team. There are 7 oracles, you have 6 members of your fire team, have every person be in charge of one particular oracle, and then one person in charge of 2. And then from there, as the oracles spawn, everyone will call them out in the order that they appear. So let's say you're watching the hidden left oracle, you see it first, you call out number 1, then the next person who sees theirs calls out the next number in sequence. Doing that, we were able to clear this sequence in a few tries. Just call out the order in which the oracles appear and then destroy them in the same order. I'll give you a quick clip of what exactly that looked like when we were doing it.
Well, oh, you already supered. My bad.
Make sure you're still watching Oracle.
I'm 2.
I think I was 1.
3.
I'm 4.
5.
6.
7.
1.
2.
3.
9. Or 4.
I'm Nemesis 4.
Okay, I'm 5. I'm 5.
1's down.
2 down.
3 down.
4 is down.
5 is down.
6 is down.
7's down.
Nicely done.
Okay. Last one, guys. Focus up here.
Anyways, once you've finished about 5 waves of oracles, the Templar boss fight will begin. This boss fight is almost exactly the same as it is in D1. A relic will spawn in the middle of the Templar's well. Once you pick it up, the encounter begins. The Templar is going to be shielded. What you're going to have to do is pop his shield using the relic super, and then you can begin DPS. Now, periodically, he's also going to summon 3 oracles. These will need to be destroyed in the order that they appear, or else everyone's going to get marked for negation. Thankfully, this time, there's no insta-wipe with the mark. If you happen to miss an oracle or destroy them out of order, your entire team will have to go to the middle of the Templar's well and cleanse in the pool. But for the most part, this boss fight is pretty simple, especially now that contest mode is no longer active. Have your team assume the same positions they were for the Oracle phase so you can call out the initial Oracle spawn. Once all 3 of the spawning Oracles are destroyed, head to the back of the battlefield where the original Conflux spawned. This is a great place to deal your DPS. When the Relic Holder Super is ready, everybody should group together, drop a well or drop a Weapons of Light bubble, pop the Templar's shield, and then just lay into him. Additionally, you'll notice several spots around the battlefield that have sort of an aura around them. These are areas that the Templar will attempt to teleport to. Generally speaking, the damage phase on Templar is very short unless you block his teleport. You'll need to have somebody stand in one of these fields in order to block it. Usually the Relic Holder's job is to do that. And of course, doing so blocks his teleport and extends your damage phase, sometimes allowing you to one-phase him. Do note that blocking his teleports will spawn more adds. In particular, I think it spawns even more Minotaurs that you might have to deal with. So you're really going to want to take him out quickly. But that's the Templar fight in a nutshell. If you don't feel too confident in your DPS, block 1 or 2 of his teleports and then have everybody go back into their Oracle positions. Pop supers, clear up the adds, and then start it all over again. Great weapons to use here are, of course, Anarchy, any sort of breach and clear capable grenade launcher, and Deathbringer will deal massive damage. Outside of that, some great special weapons would be, of course, high impact snipers, and if you have a few Titans on your team, Curus of the Falling Star plus Thunder Crash deals massive amounts of damage to the Templar. If you've got a couple of Titans and a couple of shotguns, you can actually treat this fight sort of like Taniks in the Deep Stone Crypt. If you've got a decent slug shotty with Vorpal weapon, you can drop a Lunafaction Rift and just blow him away that way as well. Keep up the damage and you should have the Templar beat in no time flat. After that encounter, you'll make your way into the Gorgon Maze, which really has no big differences from its D1 counterpart, other than an alternate method of opening Praedyth's door. Opening the Praetor door will give you access to an extra hidden chest, and will require you to destroy 3 Vex boxes that are scattered throughout the Gorgon maze. 2 of them you'll absolutely find if you're taking the normal path through the maze. The other one is over close to Praetor's door. You pop all 3, it'll open up the door, and you'll get access to a rally flag and an additional chest. After that, we've got the Gatekeeper encounter, and this one has seen some significant changes compared to its D1 counterpart. Now, when you reach the glass throne and open the door, you'll need to take out the initial Gatekeeper. He's gonna drop a relic. In this phases, you'll need to simultaneously guard 2 more confluxes located inside the left portal and inside of the right portal. And you can open these portals by standing on the Vex sync plates directly in front of them. So, kill the Gatekeeper, pick up the relic, have everybody open the portals, and send 1 person inside to start fighting the Vex. Eventually, a Minotaur is going to spawn, and this Minotaur shield can generally only be taken down by the relic. You'll need to send the relic holder over into that portal to break that shield. Now, a quick note here, you actually can break the shield with other things if you get right up on top of them like point blank range and you hit them with the colony. That will actually instantly pop that Minotaur shield. You can also apparently pop it with Prometheus Lens instead, which means you won't have to have the relic holder come in and help you, which makes this section so much easier. But that's probably a glitch. It works in Garden of Salvation as well, but I'd assume Bungie's going to try to patch that out sometime in the future, so it's good to know exactly how you're supposed to do this the correct way. But essentially, you send the relic holder into whichever portal has a Minotaur in it, he pops that shield, and then you need to bring that shield back out. But the way you do this is by dropping it for other people, because anybody who goes through the portal with the relic is going to get a 45-second debuff that will prevent them from traveling through the portal. So essentially, you kind of have to play hot potato with the relic. The person who initially grabs it heads into either left or right side, whichever side currently has a Minotaur. You go in there, you pop that Minotaur shield, you maybe kill a few ads, then you drop the shield for whoever was already in there. They grab it, they bring it out, bring it to the other side, drop it for somebody else to take it into their portal, and then they do the same. So essentially, the relic is being passed from portal to portal just in time to pop those Minotaurs. But again, if you've got a Prometheus Lens or a colony, you can pop those shields right now as kind of a little bit of a cheese. It definitely makes this section of the raid much easier. But anyways, once you've defended against about 4 waves of Vex, the confluxes inside both the left and right portals will disappear, and 1 will spawn in the middle of the boss room. So, both the left and right portal teams will head through their portals back into the main boss room to join the rest of the fire team, and everyone will defend that final conflux against a few more waves of Vex. You'll have to deal with some additional Thydras here. But this section goes by really quickly and shouldn't cause you any trouble at all. Once you've completed it, you'll get your next set of rewards and be ready to take on the final boss. Now, it would be remiss of me if I didn't mention this on the return of Vault of Glass, but there is a bit of an insta-kill cheese for ATHEON, but only if you're coming from the Gatekeeper checkpoint. If you're starting at an ATHEON checkpoint, this isn't going to work. But if you have whomever was on the right side green portal jump off the cliff a couple times, eventually they're going to spawn back inside of that portal. And they're going to have a bit of a surprise because ATHEON is going to be sitting there waiting to be summoned to the main room. And he's damageable. This is sort of like the Atrax 1 cheese where you could kind of slide in behind the door and find the real Atrax just waiting. He wouldn't aggro you, wouldn't fire back, and you could just sit there and plink away at his health until he died. You can do the same thing with ATHEON here before you even start the encounter. He won't shoot at you, he's not going to aggro against you, you can just sit there and damage him. And generally what you should do is damage him until he gets to about 1 or 2% of his health. Don't kill him, or else I've heard it kind of locks out the instance, but get him down to about 1 to 2% of his health. You can pull over a Darcy to see what his health percentage is currently at. And then have your people outside of the portal start the encounter, he'll spawn in and then only have 1 to 2% of his health, meaning you're going to melt him as soon as you get to damage phase. I've heard you can just go ahead and kill him in the portal and still get drops outside of it, but I've also heard of people being locked into the instance and having to basically go back to orbit and come back to restart. So that's the current cheese for ATHEON. Here's how to do the fight legit. Just like in D1, ATHEON is going to spawn and eventually port 3 members of your fire team to 1 portal and leave 3 members of it outside of it. From here, the teleported players will need to call out their new location. Either left portal, right portal, Mars, Venus, future, past, whatever call out your team is currently using. Then one player from the outside team will need to stand on the pillar that's on the plate to activate the teleporter for that specific location. This, of course, is so that the teleported team will have an exit when the time comes. The outside team will also have to spend their time killing harpies and destroying the supplicants, exploding harpies who are going to flood the portal entrance. These guys are really dangerous because they can instantly kill you, so they definitely take priority. Then the other two members of the outside team are going to need to pay attention to an oracle spawn. 3 oracles are going to spawn and flash twice within ATHEON's chambers. This is going to show you the order that the oracles will need to be destroyed inside the portals by the portal team. This is essentially going to be a two-way method of doing what we were doing before the Templar fight. The people outside of the portal will need to spot those oracles and remember which order they spawn in and communicate that order to the team inside the portals. The team inside the portals will have a relic. One person needs to pick that up and then start killing the adds that will have spawned in the middle. After a few seconds, the oracles will manifest inside the portal. And the other 2 non-relic players who got teleported will need to destroy those oracles in the order that the outside team reads out. And you'll have 3 sets of spawning oracles to deal with in this phase. So it's going to work like this. Start the encounter. 3 people are going to get teleported, let's say, to right side. 3 people will be left outside. One of the people outside needs to open up the portal to right side while the other 2 help clear harpies and supplicants. Then oracles are going to spawn outside. They'll pop up in a specific order and then disappear. You need to call out that order to the team inside the portal, who will then start popping those oracles in the order that the outside team said. Now, there are a bunch of different ways to chart out where these oracles can spawn. They spawn in 6 different spots around the battlefield, and a lot of different teams have different callouts for this. For me, it was helpful to look at the numbered oracles as going in kind of a clockwise fashion, starting with 1, going all the way up to 6. On this image right here, you can see all of the locations that oracles can typically spawn in. And the easiest way that my fire team found success here was by giving them numbers. The oracle that spawns closest to the right portal is number 1. The one that spawns above the island directly in front of where you start the encounter is number 2. The one that spawns directly above the left portal is number 3. Then directly across from that to the left of the stairs in the back is number 4. The one that spawns directly above the stairs in the middle is number 5. And then the one that spawns directly to the right of the stairs is number 6. It took us a few runs to get this down, but once we understood these callouts and again started thinking of it like a sort of clockwise number rotation, we were able to consistently get past the oracle phase and get to damage phase no problem. So again, people outside, you'll see what order these oracles pop up in. You call it out to your portal team. They destroy the oracles in the order that you called out. Do that 3 times and then you'll get a new prompt saying that Guardians make their own fate, as well as a healthy new buff called Time's Vengeance. Time's Vengeance is a buff that's essentially going to cut down the cooldown of your super and abilities by a ton. So you're going to constantly get your super and constantly get your grenades and melees back. This is going to be really helpful for damage phase since a lot of the grenades that you have access to deal massive damage to ATHEON. This is where damage phase begins. Make sure your outside team has got the portal open so that the teleported team can make their way back into the middle of the battlefield. Then, generally, everybody wants to stack up in a specific damage dealing location. Usually, it's the island in the middle of the battlefield. Though my teams also found success by going to other places like going behind the right side portal. From here is where you generally start your DPS phase. It is important to note that a few seconds into your DPS, one member of your fire team is going to get a detain debuff. It'll be called imminent detain. They need to pay attention to this. Because after a few seconds, a detain bubble is going to pop on them. And if they're standing next to anyone else in your fire team, they're going to get detained also. So a few seconds after your DPS starts, everyone needs to check their debuffs to see if they've got the imminent detain. Then they need to move away from the fire team so that they can get their detain bubble. Everybody else can break them out of it, and then you can continue with DPS. There have been some people testing out different ways to kind of get rid of this imminent detain with some success. Apparently, if you can stagger ATHEON while he's casting the imminent detain, you can prevent him from finishing it. Big attacks like Thunder Crash will stagger him out of that animation. Additionally, there's also some testing right now with the relic. It seems whoever has the relic will never get the imminent detain debuff. So some people have been testing things out where if you get the imminent detain debuff, if you pick up the relic, it gets rid of it. I haven't had the time to test that, but I think it's worthwhile to talk about it here. Just make sure you watch your imminent detain and don't wind up bodying the rest of your fire team. So let's talk about DPS. Now, Generally, for DPS, the setup you want to go for is at least a Warlock dropping a well. That will keep you safe from almost everything's attacks in this encounter. Atheon is going to be hitting you really, really hard, but a well will generally keep everybody safer than the Relic Shield will. For weapon DPS, definitely the Breach and Clear artifact mod tied with any grenade launcher you've got, especially Anarchy. Deals big damage in this fight. But surprisingly, supers are definitely the way to go when it comes to damaging Atheon. If you've got a bunch of Warlocks, Geomag stabilizers with Chaos Reach deal massive amounts of damage. If you're a Solar Warlock, let's say you're the person whose job it is to drop the well, fusion grenades work amazing as a damage option against this boss. Same thing for magnetic grenades with you Titans. A few members of our group were having a rough time dealing damage to Atheon with the weapons that they were using, a mixture of like Xenophage and some snipers and whatnot. And once they swapped over to just using supers and abilities like Nova Bomb or Chaos Reach or just throwing fusion grenades, their DPS shot through the roof. So essentially when this phase starts, drop a well, have somebody maybe drop a bubble with weapons of light, hit Atheon with a Breach and Clear grenade launcher, and then just start supering and throwing abilities at him. You'll deal a massive amount of damage to the boss. Anyways, after your Time's Vengeance buff runs out, everything starts over again. 3 more people will be teleported and the phase will begin again. You do it a couple more times and hopefully you'll be able to wipe him out. And that is essentially the guide for completing the Vault of Glass. There are a couple of extra tips that I do want to throw in there to make a few things easier. For the Atheon encounter, at the beginning of the fight, you're going to see a huge number of harpies spawn in the sky on both left and right. If you kill all but one of the harpies on both sides, none of them will respawn. You'll only have to deal with 2 harpies in the air rather than 12. So that's a great way to take a bit of pressure off of the outside team when they're trying to keep the portal doors open. Also, Xenophage is amazing for destroying oracles. It will one-shot them, so if you're having trouble in the oracle phase or during the Templar fight or here during the Atheon fight, Xenophage will generally carry you through that since it only takes 1 shot to pop those things. For the Spire building and Conflux encounter, I would actually recommend Stasis subclasses. Stasis is huge in those sections where you know where the enemies are going to spawn and you can just toss a freezing grenade over to them and freeze the entire pack. It'll make dealing with the Praetorians much, much easier. And like I said, for the final encounter, running something like Thunder Crash or Slova Bomb or Chaos Reach is going to deal massive damage to the final boss. So if you notice that your weapon damage is a little bit low, you can consistently hit about 1,000,000 damage per damage phase just by using supers and abilities alone. So definitely don't sleep on it. But there we go guys, that is a basic guide to the Vault of Glass in D2. Now, there are a ton of secrets in the Vault of Glass. There's 12 crystals hidden throughout that will give you access to a new shader. We've got some extra secret chests. All of that's going to be covered in a later video. This is just a quick guide on how to complete all of the encounters. Hopefully it helped, and if you Guardians have any other tips that helped your fire team, be sure to leave them down in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed the video, feel free to drop a like, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell to stay up to date with all the latest stuff we're putting out. But I'm out for now. Thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I am the Black Link. You Guardians, stay frosty.